Good morning and welcome to SEN Stream. We announce a Research Methods for Health Sciences 2 exclusive. We look ahead to week 9 and to what to expect on the modules. We have Evie Tanner in the studio with us this morning. We don't take a look at the tweet of the week because I don't have one this time. And as always, we take questions and provide answers in the chat. Stay tuned, folks. Guys, good morning. Welcome to SEN Stream. Evie, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Excellent.
Good to be here.
I have to say it's a bit more strange doing the bongs, as in the Big Ben bongs, when you have someone actually sat next to you. I think it's a bit more socially acceptable to do that in a room on your own, but never mind. Good morning. So, Ted let us down this morning. So did Teddy. So did Jane. 3 people decided that they didn't fancy coming on to SEN Stream this morning, so not ideal. But I think I should just take the message that, you know, this is a one-man band. I don't know, but Evie's here. Excellent to have you in the studio. So before we move on, let's see who we've got on the chat this morning. So we've got Magdalena, good morning, hello. We've also got Josh, good morning, hello, welcome to the stream. And we've got Antonia as well. Now, I saw 5 people watching when we had a little chat as to who was tuned in. So if you are there in the background, please do say hello so we can say hello to you this morning. But essentially, yeah, we're going to kick off with the updates to the modules. And then we'll go from there. Now, we're kind of going to take the opportunity to integrate some of the feedback that you guys gave during the mid-semester feedback form. And then, Evie, hopefully you get the opportunity to kind of just add a little bit of sort of insight to that. Maybe some of the stuff that's discussed on the WhatsApp group that, you know, we're not allowed access to, and that's fine. You guys, you know, you can say nasty things about Sanjoy. I don't know, he's a nice guy. I'm joking. But, yeah, we'll go through the module updates, and then I'll probably just turn to Evie each time, and if you've got anything sort of that you want to add to it, then that would be absolutely magic. So I think we should kick off. We'll kick off with advanced performance nutrition, and then we'll go from there. So obviously we had 12 submissions for the formative assessment. I kind of let my feelings know about that in the session when I was there. Would have been good to see a few more people submit on that front. But just to sort of say that I've given a bit of an outline as to what kind of feedback you guys can expect to get. So it'll be a combination of, I put like almost like an example rubric on there, so I'll populate that. There'll be some in-text comments on the actual submission that you put in on your reports, and then I'll take the opportunity to do one of those 3-minute sort of audio feedbacks, so make sure you check those out as well. And again, I've got through a couple of them so far, and I'm hoping to try and get those in as soon as possible, really. So again, I'm not expecting it to be sort of 15 working days. I'm hoping to get that done sort of by the end of next week, if everything goes to plan, so you guys can work on the feedback from there. And then finally, for advanced performance nutrition, looking ahead to next week, we've got Dr. Sam Impey joining us to talk about the fuel for the work required. So this was a lot of work that he did during his PhD. He's now past that. He's been doing a postdoc at the University of Birmingham for about 12 months working with Gaz Wallace. We're going to touch back on Gaz Wallace shortly. But he now works with Scott Mitchelton professional cycling team. So they're a world tour team based in Australia, but he's somehow managed to get a job where he's a sport and exercise nutritionist for the team based in the UK, but these guys are going to be traveling all around the world. So congratulations to him for smashing out that job. Bit of a winner, really. But he's going to be coming in and talking to you guys on Tuesday, which will be a really nice session to have. Now, looking into the feedback, how is the module going?
Good, I think. Yeah, I mean,
this is awkward for you, isn't it? It's awkward for me. Jeez.
I personally quite like having the guest lecturers come in, because I think that kind of mixes it up a bit.
Excellent.
Bit of different insight into some of the different topics that we've been covering. I think, in terms of feedback-wise, I think people sometimes just find it a bit intense, maybe a bit too much content for what's being covered. But then I guess it's a bit of a balance, isn't it? Because it's supposed to be like advanced performance.
It's in the title, indeed.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I think I've taken on board. I mean, I've tried to adjust the sessions as much as possible, but it's kind of a fine line between making sure you guys have got enough content, like I say in the sessions, really, that you've got enough content to kind of feel like you've tackled a subject and there's a lot of depth there type thing. But I also appreciate that attention spans and the 3-hour sessions are not kind of conducive to such like dense sessions, really. So I think, I mean, you don't actually have me again for the rest of the semester. Praise be, as it were. But no, the feedback's taken on board. I was chatting with Claire a little bit about it as well, about how to change these things, because I think Claire, Sanjoy, Jane are actually much better than I am at actually integrating additional sessions, additional activities into the session. So yeah, I think I'm going to put like an arbitrary cap on myself for next semester, well, next year. I know that doesn't affect like most of you, but maybe putting a limit of like 45 minutes to an hour on lectures, and then at least having a substantial activity there. Yeah. But so apologies for taking your head off. I'm just so goddamn keen. So so we've got a few more people coming in and saying hello on the chat. So we've got, first of all, Antonia, I feel like you've been watching the new Alan Partridge series. Top of the morning to you, indeed. Aha. Correct me if I'm wrong. Chloe, good morning. Nice to see you. My video is lagging quite a lot today, but my sound is fine. Anyone else or just my Wi-Fi? To be honest with you, Josh, my computer sounds like it's going to set on fire, so it likely is coming from my end, I'm afraid. Mine too, same here. I may take the opportunity to just downsize some of the webcam stuff that we've got going on, so just bear with me. We'll try and get through the updates first, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, we'll do. In fact, I think as well, if I change the view slightly, it usually helps a little bit. Guys, let us know if this is any better, or at least, you know, if it improves from there. Let's move it on. Anything to add to advanced performance? What's the perception like on the assessment?
It's okay. I think with regards to the formative, I think people just felt under quite a lot of pressure.
Yep.
I think we've got so much stuff happening at the minute. I think it's all a bit like overwhelming. It's all like because all the assessments are over quite like a short period of time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just not very spread out, but intense at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the issue, I think. Like a lot of, I don't know, I'm finding it quite just getting past one thing to get to another thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'd be good to get some feedback in the chat as well, just to kind of add to this, that how people are feeling in regards to the intensity of the assessments at the moment. Because at the start of the semester, like, you know, we're thinking like back in the summertime, before you guys have even come to university, I kind of take the opportunity to put those assessment maps together to ensure that, yes, your assessments are spread out by at least a week, but at the same time, like, it's the amount of assessments that you guys have got to do to justify getting the MSc and stuff. It's such a fine balancing act. I also have to, as a course leader, it's kind of challenging to make sure that, you know, module leaders don't suddenly change their mind about their assessment dates, which can be a thing. So I'm not complaining, I'm just saying type thing. But yeah, as I say, like, so we try and get that balance right, but at the end of the day, like, if your MSc was easy, then everyone would have an MSc, and you'd feel like you'd come out of it, like, just if you walk through your MSc, you're not going to feel like you've achieved anything. Whereas being able to sort of schedule your time, ensure that you're meeting the assessment criteria and balancing those things is a challenge, and it's supposed to be a challenge, so that you kind of come out of it having gone through it. So I think, again, a lot of students come in with a perception that they're going to get, you know, 85% on everything, and the reality is that most people don't. So you get obviously talented students who are very, you know, very good and stuff like that. But for the vast majority of people, you know, the challenge of getting all the assessments together is the battle itself type thing. And that's not to be sort of sniffed at all. Like, we know the course is hard. As I say, it wouldn't be an MSc if it was easy. So it'd be an undergraduate or a PG dip or whatever it would be. So, and I know the feedback's taken on board. Unfortunately, the assessment dates are what they are now. So I think it's about prioritising what's important. So you can start to look at, what the percentage weightings are of some of your assessments, and then you can start to then plan what's important. So like your design study, for example, 10% of the module mark, but in actual fact it's 20% of an assessment on the course because it's a 40 credit module. So you actually double up a little bit on that one. And also it leads in nicely to your dissertation project. So if you get your design study right at this point, then you probably lead into a nice positive project from there. So yeah. Does that help? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
Let's check the chat before we move on. Let me just have a look. I'm not going to open it just because people are struggling. Guys, if you could let me know if the quality's improved at all, that would be fantastic. But yeah, doing my best to just try and make sure it all works. But nothing in the chat, so I think we'll move it on if that's all right. Let's head across to, I think it is nutritional assessment, yes. So nutritional assessment with Claire. Now I believe this week you've been in the in 407. You've been doing some fingerprint blood sampling. Tell us what you've been up to.
So we're basically just testing like blood glucose and like cholesterol, and we were doing like basically visual signs of deficiencies and how you would recognise it if someone came into the clinic. That kind of
excellent
thing. We were paired with the GPHNs.
Okay. God, bitter rivals. How was it?
Yeah, it was fun. It was led by Jessica and Regina.
Okay.
So it's a bit manic with all of us being together, to be quite honest. Cause
Yeah,
a lot of people in just one lab space.
So you're all in 407 doing sort of pods group work type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was quite busy.
Right.
A lot of people wandering around with like, I don't know, urine samples and finger pricks.
Yeah. And this is why we don't eat in the labs, guys, because the chances are it's got blood or urine all over it. And I don't necessarily want blood and urine on my sandwiches, but there we are. Now, yeah, I suspect the labs are going to be pretty busy looking into your projects as well, actually. I'm going to touch on this later a bit, actually. But yeah, I mean, the only other option with stuff like that is if we had the split room. So if you had 407, then maybe something like 404, which is the lab around the corner. The problem is with that, though, is that then you have to have 2 members of staff, and then they're not an equal sizing, and you know, it just all gets a bit full on, really. But hopefully you got some usable information from it.
I mean, I think in terms of the module in general, I think some of the concerns we've had that it's not SEN specific enough. Okay. And I kind of understand the need to sort of have like a more holistic approach, but then at the same time, maybe because we've already done some of the lab work, maybe, I don't know, having something that's slightly different or something that's like an extra,
or even like builds on it type thing. Would be
maybe a bit more beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, nutritional assessment's a tricky one because it's kind of it's a core element of the course. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing a sport exercise nutrition degree, so try and make it specific. And again, maybe I'm trying to ask module leaders and session leaders in particular to try and ensure that they consider the content of their sessions and make it applicable. So if you are doing like dietary recall, why is that important for a sport and exercise nutritionist, and how could you use that in a clinic that you set up, for example? Because if you think about it, like, I mean, I'm using 24-hour recall or whatever type thing as just an arbitrary example, but your clients, if they're paying on a per hour basis, some clients may not have the funds to be able to purchase a dietary assessment, so a 3-day dietary assessment. Because as a consultant, you would have to price that in, because you're going to have to take time to actually analyse the diaries. You're not going to do that for free, otherwise your consultancy is not going to work. So with that in mind, if you had a smaller package that clients could take on, being able to get a really effective and usable assessment of their dietary intake as quickly as possible within like an hour's consultation comes from almost like a 24-hour recall. So being able to handle that information quickly, and if you think about the assessment on advanced performance nutrition as well, it's kind of, you're trying to achieve that, maybe not necessarily a 24-hour recall, but get a snapshot into the requirements of an individual's sporting needs and dietary needs in a very short space of time. So again, I mean, I'm able to draw these comparisons together, but I'm just trying to encourage others to try and do the same. But again, let's open it up to the chat and see what folk have to say on that front. If there's anyone adding any... Oh dear, the video is lagging apparently, which is not... unfortunately, guys, unless I stop the stream, there's not much I can do about it right now. But if you could let me know in the chat that you can hear us, then that's probably pretty much the most important thing, I think, at the moment. So do let us know in the chat before we move on. But yeah, I mean, if there are any other examples that people can give about how that module could be more specific, then obviously let us know. Particularly if there's any content that you think, okay, well, that's useful, but if it could be pitched at a particular angle, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, really good.
And just reflecting on the module a little bit more comprehensive, is there any particular sessions that did work really well for SEN guys?
Just trying to think, because there was a couple of sessions that I thought were maybe a little bit redundant or could have been better in term one.
Okay.
So for example, the nutritics, we all had to do that for Jane's project. So it was
This is a crossover that we'd kind of picked up on with regards to nutritional, because that'd be nutrition performance and then nutritional assessment. Yeah. Again, I know Claire is aware of that because Claire deals with all the licensing for nutritics across the university, so she knows who needs access and when. So again, yeah, it's something to build on, I think. Again, my take on it is that yes, you've been introduced to nutritics, but no one becomes like an expert straight away, and you may pick up extra bits and pieces here, but maybe some reflection with Claire could be that, you know, the assumed knowledge that the two different cohorts are coming into the module with could be considered more comprehensively.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe there should have been some separate sessions, or maybe GPHN students come only for the first half of the session, and we would only be there for the second half, and then we'd both be doing different things during that time. Good stuff. The only issue I see with that is that obviously with the module, you'll get the module pro forma, and it will state from the outset how many contact hours you are expected to get. Obviously you're paying a considerable amount of money, and as such that's attributed to how much contact time you get with the university, and it's a contractual agreement, so we couldn't necessarily just take away an hour and a half without providing something else. But I wonder if we could like almost flip it on its head and maybe make the suggestion to the GPHN course that they introduce nutritics in semester one, because then everyone would come in at the same level, really. Again, nutritional assessment from an individual perspective through dietary assessment as well is important for them. So lest we not forget that, you know, there could be adjustments made on the other side of things as well. But it's just useful to talk through. Again, capturing this as well, it means I can share it with Claire and show the discussion that's been had, and she can maybe adapt the sessions for future usage. So it's quite useful, really. So yeah, I mean, let's just go back to the chat just to make sure folk can actually hear this conversation. The video is frozen for most of the time, not ideal. I think what I'll do, Evie, we're just going to pause for about a minute or so while I change some settings, and then we'll just go from there. So just give us 1 second, guys.
Guys, there's no guarantee that this is going to be any better, and I've just basically added about 20 kilos to both me and Evie through just changing the camera settings, but it's fine, it's whatever. It's 20 kilos, what is it? Right, let's look ahead. Hopefully, let us know in the chat, guys, if this is any better. Video is frozen, at least for me. Good morning, sorry it was working before. It's all right, Maddie, you're allowed to have a job and a life outside of SEN stream. Now the sound work, but video is frozen. All right, I think we might treat this as more like a podcast than a video cast. I think the slides will change. They're not going to flick around too much, but let us know if there's any improvement and we can politely go from there. So, looking ahead, it says week 7, it should say week 9. I do this on the train on the way in just to save a bit of time, but here we are. What transferable skills can you evidence in job interviews? In nutritional assessment next week, you will explore how to evidence practical and transferable skill as part of job applications. And it will hopefully feed into your coursework 2 preparation. And I feel like this is a timely session simply because a lot of the feedback, bringing it back on topic, that we got for the course was that there was one question that was asked in the quality section of the questionnaire, which was, do you feel supported looking ahead to post-graduation? And I think the general consensus was either it was okay or bad, basically. So hopefully this session will start to drag things a little bit back further round. Again, it's a balance between making sure you guys are suitably supported for the project at this particular time of the year, and also so making sure that that goes ahead, but also then there needs to be a point in the near future where we start to transition and go, do you know what, guys, you know, we're in March now, it'll be April, and before you know it, it'll be the first week of August, you'll submit your dissertation and you'll be, see you later, I need to go and get a job. You know, my loans run out, I can't afford to live in my flat, and these all become very real things. I remember at the end of my PhD, I had funding for 3 years, which was very nice, but as soon as that funding was up, didn't necessarily, I didn't have like a nice buffer in my bank account. So it was very much a case of need to find a job. And it wasn't a case of need to find a job kind of within a month of that funding finishing. It was a case of I need to find a job and move and get established in that role so that we could, I say we because me and my partner, and our cats could actually continue to have some food. So I do understand it, don't get me wrong. I ended up moving countries and 400 miles to a job. That's why I lived in Cambridge, and that's why I'm down south and not in the north anymore. But so I do understand it, and we will start to transition towards getting more advice and guidance on the thing. But so we've talked comprehensively about nutritional assessment, but I'm going to come back to the whole future opportunities as well, because around this time, like I say, we will start transitioning towards a more forward-looking perspective about posting jobs on the course site, for example, is something that I did last year.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I think a lot of people are sort of a bit unsure about where they want to go at the end of the year, and I think might be quite nice to have a few sort of more ideas floating around and opportunities that people can have a look at. Definitely.
So you can approach this from 2 different directions. You can either post individual jobs, which is actually quite time intensive for staff, but nevertheless, me and Claire last year for the students who were departing did take the opportunity to do that. We identified specific jobs, but I don't know how aware you guys are of different excuse me, goodness me, of different sort of job search engines that are specific to nutrition or nutritional science or science in general. I don't know, what's your general feeling? So it might be worth then sort of developing on the course-specific Blackboard site, like the careers section, putting in the different search engines that you could use. So, for example, the Nutrition Society has a job search function on it, where there's only nutrition-specific jobs that are posted on there. You've also got jobs.ac.uk, which is university-specific jobs. So, yes, I'd look on there if I wanted to find like a lecturer or senior lecturer position, but there's also research associate, a research assistant, and the universities now also use this for more some of the supporting roles that you get within like the sporting elements of the university. So like Birmingham and Loughborough, for example, have quite a big athlete development kind of section of the university, because they have supported athletes on their programs, but they have support staff behind them. So they'll have nutritionists, they'll have sport and exercise scientists or exercise physiologists, which you guys all fit the role of, considering the kind of diverse nature of the course. So again, it could be a case that we develop that side of the SEN. Is there anything else that springs to mind?
Not. I mean, yeah, that would be one really helpful thing. Another thing would be, yeah, maybe like obviously not because you said it is time consuming.
Yeah.
But some like specific opportunities, and I guess just like variety as well, because I guess lots of people maybe not really sure exactly which area. I know some people would be, but
Yeah.
not so sure about where they want to take what we've learned this year, basically, and how they want to put it into practice.
Okay, cool, excellent. Let's again a quick touch on the chat just to see what's going on. Much better from Josh. Excellent. My video is working well. Great. I can do all my awkward arm movements and everything. Everything is all good. Any thoughts in the chat with regards to life after Westminster? Don't be shy. Get them in there. It's a nice way of capturing what you guys actually think. Again, Evie's doing a fantastic job of trying to translate the conversations that are happening in the corridors, which we don't always hear, which is great. But again, if you've got anything to add to what Evie's saying, please do add it in the chat before we move on. Again, any questions about anything, also line them up in the chat as we move on. Like, should we move it on to the next module? I think we're on, assessment of health and fitness. Disaster. Here we go. Assessment of health and fitness with Jane. So, you guys have obviously just yesterday, in fact, had the opportunity to undertake your client assessments. Before the stream went live this morning, Evie told me that she felt that most groups had done a good job.
Yeah. I think so. Like, I don't think there was any. Well, as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any major mishaps.
Major oopsies is what I would describe them as. Good. Excellent. And Jane has kind of reinforced that. So she's, again, excellent work all round. She said today, because she sent me these updates yesterday, she's highlighted here that you've all shown a very high level of professionalism working with the clients, and the clients all left the lab happy. What more can we ask for is what I would say on that front. And she's also highlighted here that she's looking forward to next week. So she's highlighted here a slight change of focus moving into week 9, where we'll be looking at more of this, well, you guys will be looking at the more psychological elements of sport, sorry. Now, we have a staff member who's returning from maternity leave, which is excellent, Dr. Carly Wood. And her research expertise is in green exercise. So green exercise is looking at this idea of taking exercise as we know it, but looking at the additive benefit of exercising in open and green areas to see if whether, so we know exercise has a positive impact on people's mental health and well-being. But if you take that exercise and place it within a green space, such as a park or a wood or an open green, nice kind of rural environment, does that have an additional benefit? So she's going, I believe for this session, she's going to take a bit more of a comprehensive look at the psychological element of physical activity. But then, again, her special expertise is in this idea of green exercise. So it will be nice for you guys to finally meet Carly. She's been on maternity leave for this entire year so far. So she can really add some value to your understanding about the psychological elements of sport, physical activity, exercise, nutrition, the works type thing. So hopefully, Jane has indicated here as well, that following that there'll be a practical looking at the stress imposed by exercise as assessed by heart rate variability. So not just heart rate as in what heart rate you elicit when you do exercise, but heart rate variability specifically refers to the very, very small and subtle micro measurements that you can take between each heartbeat. So it kind of goes against convention that a healthy heartbeat or a healthy level of heart rate variability is actually having quite a lot of variability between the tiny little gaps between your heartbeats. Whereas when you become stressed, your heart rate becomes very, very consistent. So that variability between each heartbeat is actually lost. And therefore we can use it as almost like a proxy measure for stress and stress within individuals. So I don't know if, I seem to remember someone mentioning this when they were talking about their project, so there might be a couple of you using heart rate variability as a primary measure in your projects. Let me know if that's you in the chat. But yeah, it's a nice technique to be able to use. It's uninvasive. You can collect lots of data over a period of time. It's almost free living because you've just got to wear a heart rate monitor strap and have it recording. So participants might not necessarily be hugely aware of the measurement being taken other than just wearing a strap. So get yourselves to the session, have a look, get involved as always, and you can find out more about that as you move on. But Again, I feel like Jane is in the best position to get great feedback on her module, because you guys are all doing things that are super SEN specific and interesting. It's practical, all that kind of carry on. But how's the module going? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone's quite liking the fact that we've got a lot of lab practical work, getting involved, and also having the extra sessions so we can come back and do. So, for example, like sometimes the sessions, like we don't get everything done, so we can come back for like the sessions with the Bonnie and redo the Bob Pod and have a go at the certain aspects that we want to do again. So I think people have found it really good to make use of the labs. Yeah,
last year again, we kind of introduced this idea of the additional sessions outwith of assessment of health and fitness that build on those practical skills last year. So we had a different research assistant who came in and did those types of sessions. So it's really great that we can have Avoni coming in and do those extra sessions. And again, Avoni's feedback was that you guys had sort of snapped our hand off, if you like, with those sessions to have the opportunity to go into the lab. So well done for getting involved, and it's great to hear that it's actually being used and taken on board type thing. And again, if you are working in labs for your project, those types of skills are going to be invaluable for you to kind of hit the ground running as you kind of move forward. And again, it's assessment by learning by assessment type thing, in that you've already now just undertaken an assessment which is very practically involved. You'll generate a report off the back of it now, I believe. Yeah. So again, all stuff that you would likely be expected to do if you were a private consultant, if you were working in an organisation with a sports team, all the rest of it, to be able to get an output from the testing that you've been doing. And similarly, you'd be doing that on a larger scale if you are undertaking participant visits for your research projects as well. So it all kind of works out pretty well, really. Again, people are being hesitant in the chat today, but maybe it's because I'm not bringing it up, I don't know. But yeah, let us know what you think of assessment of health and fitness, if there's anything else you want to add to that. Yeah, anything else you think you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, we've got our presentations in a couple of weeks' time, and then the report, although Jane said that she was going to talk about next week about writing the report up, so
okay.
I think
so you've just reminded me about something which is good. So I was hoping to get Jane in today to come and talk to you. So I invited Teddy, he wasn't available for some personal reasons. I invited Jane. Unfortunately, her cat's not very well, so she's had to go to the vet, so I was fairly sympathetic on that front, which suggests that I wasn't sympathetic with Teddy, not the case. So yeah, Jane has agreed though to come onto SENstream next week, so she can talk about. When's your client report due to be returned?
I think it's beginning of April, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry.
I think it's beginning of. Oh, I can't remember. I think
it's in April
or May. I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, you've got a bit of time though, which is good. So
presentations first.
Yeah. Well, so Jane's going to come onto SENstream next week, which is excellent. So we'll take the opportunity to do an interview with Jane, maybe touching on the client report and the presentation skills as well. So tune in next week, and Jane will come in and talk more comprehensively about those things. So yeah, excellent, good. Shall we move it on?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. The final module I want to talk about is research methods for health sciences 2. So the most important thing, obviously, which is being at the forefront of everyone's mind at the moment, will be keep working towards your design study hand-in, which will be next Tuesday, 1 o'clock. Now, next week on Monday, now again, I invited Teddy today, and he wasn't available for fairly valid reasons. So I've kind of tried to tease out a time that would be most appropriate for him to come and speak. We talked about doing it this afternoon. Unfortunately, I'm in the lab with an undergrad student looking at some DNA stuff this afternoon, so that wasn't an option. And for long story short, the only time that would be available is next Monday. So you will have seen, and if I just quickly have sorry, I think it's the next slide along. You will have seen an announcement. Yeah, I'm just come back to that in a second. You will have seen this announcement go out on the shared Blackboard site on the module. So there will be an additional live stream session with Teddy next Monday at 2 o'clock. It'll probably be for about an hour, and it will just be a conversation with Teddy. So we'll have the live chat open. Teddy will be sat with me like this. We'll probably make the screen full size. And I'll be facilitating the questions to ask Teddy. But The emphasis I would like to stress here, though, is that it's last-minute issues, so little tweaks that you want to make to your design study submission, because we're not going to solve major crisis problems at 2 o'clock the day before your hand-in. So if you're sat there thinking, my project is not in a good place, and you're sat there thinking that right now, it's your supervisor that you need to speak to today to try and alleviate and solve those problems, because that live session on Monday is not for doing major stuff. I'm hoping for most of you, you're not in a major crisis at the moment. So yeah, tune in to the session on Monday, 2 o'clock. It will be recorded and put on the YouTube site as well. But if you've got questions that you come out of the weekend thinking, I just want some extra little bit of advice on this particular thing, then Monday, 2 o'clock is where we're going to try and do that. Now, obviously, this is open to both SEN students and the GPHN students. The GPHN students, you know, they don't know the etiquette for SEN stream and live chat, because you guys are all really polite and considered in the chat. They might just be animals, I don't know. I'm trying to stay, yeah, I'm joking, I need to be careful. But, so yeah, very acute questions about very specific things that we could try and help with is what that session's for. So tune in if you have any of those issues, or you want to find out, because it can be quite useful to, even if you just, sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with what you're saying, yeah.
Even if you just passively listen to some of the answers, you might think, oh, I need to add that into my particular questions or my design study as well. So hopefully, I mean, I was not going to do this because I'm not necessarily on the right page about kind of last minute issues. So I'd like to think that people are planning ahead a little bit, but I can also see the value that you might just have one little niggly thing that you would probably feel better about if you just got a little bit of confirmation as to whether that's the right thing or not. So either I'll be able to answer your question, or Teddy will be able to answer your question as well. So tune in, and that should be a good little session that we can get involved with. Now, I'm just going to flick back so that we can have a little look about what to expect next week when we've all got the design study out of the way and we can forget about it until we actually have to start doing the research project. So, again, we're going to touch on this because this was a contentious issue in the feedback, so we'll come back to it in a second. But next week you have a double session with Maria and Regina. So Maria is going to look at qualitative research methods and focus groups, and then there's going to be a focus groups practical workshop with Regina in the second half of the session. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of context and then come back to you and see if that's changed or anything like that so far.
Okay.
So I took the opportunity, on SEN stream maybe last week or the week before, I'd already indicated that yes, I'd seen the feedback and I'd tried to act on the feedback that you guys had given with regards to the research methods too. So how did I do that? I distributed all of the feedback to all of the module leaders, so Teddy was included in all of the feedback responses, so hopefully he's had an opportunity to read some of the feedback that was submitted, which was fairly to the point on some of the research methods 2 stuff. I haven't followed up with him directly with regards to whether he's seen that, but I'm going to make the assumption that he has. And then secondly, I followed up with a direct email to all of the session leaders on research methods 2, who were going to be taking a session on weeks, I think it would have been from week 7, 8, 9, 10 onwards type thing. And Evie, Ted and Francesca were CC'd into this email, which was basically requesting that the session leaders took into account the 22 students who are on the SEN stream. Sorry, on the SEN stream, on the MSc in Sport and Exercise Nutrition. Sorry, the two things blur because anyway, never mind. And I didn't get a response from any of the session leaders, but I also didn't ask for one specifically. So that's the thing in academia, which is fine. I took the opportunity this morning on the train to look ahead to next week, because I always do, to look at what you guys were doing. And I saw you were doing the focus groups thing. And so I took the opportunity to email Maria and Regina to give some examples of how focus groups could be integrated into a more sport and exercise nutrition mindset, because there is ample opportunity here for this to be very population-based study, GPHN kind of focused, because of the people who are running the sessions, and that's fine because there is value to be added there. And I think before we get any extra feedback, I'm going to take the opportunity to just share what I've shared with them. So why should you be interested in focus groups is what I would say. So what is a focus group? It's similar to an interview, but it basically involves more than one participant. So usually between sort of 6 and 12 people, And your role as the researcher or the group leader for a focus group, is to act as like a facilitator for that particular interview. So you act as the person who tries to ensure that the group discussion stays on topic and it covers the areas that you are interested in, because that's why you've got the people collected in the first place. Now, I know a lot of you won't be using focus groups as your primary research tool, if you like, for your projects, but nevertheless, there is a role that focus groups can play in the role of the sport and exercise nutritionist. Specifically, it can have a real good application when you are dealing with a group of athletes or a group of people who all fall under, say for example, Evie, I know you're involved with track and field as of this result of the discussion this morning. An athletics club gets in touch with you and says, I want you to come and work with our team. So not necessarily working with individuals on an individual basis, but putting together a nutritional strategy for the team. Now, one way that you might want to extract information efficiently and quickly from the actual team themselves is to get a selection of the athletes, between 6 and 12 people, get them in a room, and then have a focused group type based discussion to find out, what is the nutritional needs of this particular group of athletes. Now, if you had a framework of which you could utilize, which builds on some of the way that qualitative researchers use to extract usable and meaningful information from these focus groups, then you do a better job extracting meaningful information from the athletes in that club, so that you can then start to devise a nutritional intervention or implement good nutritional practices in the team rather than focusing on the individuals. So there is good traction there and a good level of applicability. Now, why am I telling you this? It's to ensure basically that you're not focusing on any given particular individual's requirements when you go into a club environment like that. But and the individual could be like a coach, it could be an S&C coach, it could be the team manager, where they may have a particular agenda that doesn't always match the athlete's needs or perceptions, which is important. So that's kind of what I've framed focus groups from. Now, I've shared this type of information with both Maria and Regina ahead of the session, and it's my expectation that that's kind of taken on board so that they can then try and integrate the general concepts, principles and techniques of using focus groups, but also applying it to that type of context as well. So hopefully, and I plan to do this for each of the sessions leading into the rest of the semester. What do you think?
No, I think it's definitely needs to be more applicable to like SEN, and because I feel that the sessions, I went to the one this week and to be honest I left halfway through. It was
okay. What was the one on this week then?
I think it was
you left halfway through, so
maybe I can't remember, maybe interviews, but it was, I don't know if other people feel this as well, but I just found that very general. Okay. Just talking about everything as a concept rather than actually saying like how we could use it and really apply it. Okay. And it is, I know it's cropped up a lot, but it is more geared towards like population groups in general, rather than, I don't know, the specific sort of like that, as you said, the SEN. Yeah. I find it's difficult for us to sort of for our cohort to sort of engage in those kind of sessions. Yeah.
It's tricky, isn't it? I mean, looking at it from like from my perspective as like maybe a session leader when I come in, like sometimes there is a role to be very explicit about how that applies, and sometimes you kind of want to leave it to the students to kind of draw the dots together themselves, and it seems like it's maybe strayed a bit more on the requiring you guys to draw those dots, or maybe think about how you could apply it in a sport and exercise nutrition context. But I also do agree that it can be useful to ensure that the expert stood at the front of the room tries to help draw those comparisons with you as well. And again, I'd missed the opportunity to maybe give some specific examples of where the SEN role can play in maybe, I mean, interviews, for example. Interviews is just a consultancy. You're extracting nutritional information from a client. So it has applicability. Like if you can learn different techniques or different structures for interviews, which you could then apply to extracting nutritional information from clients, that's a huge skill set to take away. But again, I've said that now, it's maybe a bit late in the day to do that, but I'm kind of trying to encourage the session leaders to try and help draw those comparisons. And I think the staff on the sport and exercise nutrition side could maybe play a bit more of a role in ensuring that, yes, we know what the content is of those sessions and giving explicit examples to those session leaders to ensure that you guys are catered for. So looking ahead to the focus group sessions, I've tried to do that ahead of the time.
I think it is just like sometimes the angle from which the lecture's delivered from that makes it I think that's part of the issue as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying my best to ensure, again, one man banning it, but
difficult, but
yeah, it is that. But hopefully, well, let's find out. You know, I put it to the session leaders for the focus groups on research methods, health sciences too. I've been pretty explicit about it. So we're going to meet again next week. Maybe you'll be in the chat this time, I don't know, but we'll get some feedback on the session and we can go from there, really. But I really do hope to see some changes being made on that module moving forward. So is there anything else you want to add before we move on?
I mean, unless other people have questions on
the chat. Well, you've made reference to the chat there. We've got an invader, guys. We have Dr. Claire Robinson has joined us this morning, which has immediately put me on edge because I don't know how much Claire watches of this. But Claire, good morning. Welcome to SEN Stream. Feel free to add any comments in the chat as you have done already. But we've just finished up. You've missed nutritional assessment, Claire. Thank goodness. Evie was brutal. No, I'm joking. She wasn't. She was very, very considered. But we're going to move it on now. I'll be honest with you, the conversation has gone on and I can't remember what is next, but let's have a look and we'll go from there, really. Yes, okay, just a final reminder. We've got this last minute issues session with Teddy on Monday, 2 o'clock. Be there or be squared, as it were. So, okay, now I have a continued professional development opportunity here with the Physiological Society. Now, Dr. Brad Elliott, who is supervising, who is it now? Yes, he supervises Avoni as a PhD student, but he's also taking on Alex and Joanna as dissertation supervisor. But he's a Physiological Society member, as am I. He's specifically involved in promoting events with the Physiological Society, and I have an event to share with you here now. Now, to give this context and the fact that I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this, I've just seen comments coming in from Claire here, which is funny, but you can see here that the Physiological Society is hosting an event called Fatigue as a Limitation to Performance. Now, the reason I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time is that it's in Aberdeen, and specifically at the start of July. Now, hopefully by this point in your sport, exercise, nutrition MSc lives, you will have finished your data collection by this point and starting to think about putting your results section together, doing your statistical analysis and all that sort of carry on. So you may find an opportunity to head up to Aberdeen to go and attend this session. You can have a little read of the summary of the event, who's going to be there, the programme, etc., etc. If we have a look at who's attending, we've got Romain Musin from Brussels, again looks at cognitive function and mental, the role that the brain plays in fatigue. We've also got Martin Gabala here from McMaster University in Canada. He's the guy who put together all the high intensity training stuff. So looking at the 30-second all-out intermittent sprints for looking at insulin sensitivity and such like. But it looks like he's applying that kind of stuff to high intensity training as a strategy to combat fatigue. We've also got Louise Burke coming in there. Again, she's registered here as Australian Catholic University. I think she's not allowed to use the Australian Institute of Sport anymore because, from what I understand, it doesn't exist. So, but she's going to look at nutritional strategies to offset fatigue. And to just give you a little, we've got Mike Joyner here as well from the Mayo Clinic in USA. So a pretty huge lineup, actually. Just looking at the people that are going to be there. It's not often you get those types of people all in the same room at the same time. Again, just a bit of a family tree thing going on here. So my PhD supervisor is Stuart Galloway. Galloway's PhD supervisor was Ron Morn. So again, he's prof now, I think, of St Andrews University. He's a bit to the point. I got told off for him when I did a presentation at a conference once because he thought my slides weren't 3 slides long because of the way they were animated, and he wasn't happy about that, so that's fine. But he's a super intelligent guy, one of the founding fathers of sport and exercise nutrition within the UK as well. So good event to get involved with. Have a look, check it out if you're interested in it, and then you can go from there. Do you know of anyone who's taken up some of these opportunities?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
No?
I know Sandroy's put out a few opportunities, and I think some people have taken that up with him. I'm not sure about the one you posted a few weeks ago.
The high performance environment thing. Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I know a few folk went to Isenk, Newcastle. Did you go?
Yeah, it was really good, really good.
Oh, nice, good. I think, I think I'll be making the recommendation. I really wanted to go. I just cocked up the application form. I didn't do it in time. Didn't get a spot. Even though the university was going to fund me to go, I was very disappointed, to say the least. But never mind. So, but I'm going to keep sharing the opportunities that I see. At least then people are aware of them. If you've got the opportunity to go up there, then great, excellent. All we can do, signpost. And then go from there, really. So let's move it on anyway. I think we've got, oh goodness, I've had a disaster. Here we go, let's go back. Now, I know there's a few of you out there that are interested in different PhD opportunities. Now, I would say that, yes, it is a natural progression to go from an MSc to a PhD, but again, I would say most people don't appreciate what a PhD is in the first place. So if you're not sure, go and find out what it actually means to do a PhD first and foremost. But if you do fall into the category of thinking that's definitely, and I've had conversations with a few of you who definitely are under the mindset that you want to pursue that kind of thing. I've seen a number of different PhD positions come up on Twitter recently. So I'm going to take the opportunity again to try and collate those opportunities so that you guys have got access to them. So I know there's one going with Dr. Gareth Wallace from the University of Birmingham, which is sport and exercise nutrition specific, and it's in an applied sports nutrition role, looking at how you can integrate research with the athletes that are based at the University of Birmingham. So again, University of Birmingham, big university, well funded, and they have some of those athlete development opportunities there. So it seems like Gareth has managed to attract a little bit of money and a bit of funding to do a joint PhD, almost like an applied PhD position from the research department and the sports performance kind of element there. It will be very hotly contested. I'm not going to sort of be delusional in that regard, but there is one there. There is another opportunity that I saw. Again, if you follow me on Twitter, you will see these pop up because I tend to retweet them so that people can see them. There was another opportunity with a French university. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what it was, but again, go onto my the Twitter account and you will see those opportunities being posted there. And I noticed another institute, again, off the top of my head I can't remember, and I should have had these prepared and I apologise, but there's another institution, I think it's a Netherlands-based institution where they have about 35 different PhD positions going, where people can put their proposals forward. So again, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, hopefully that information will be coming available as we move forward. Again, just trying to deal with the feedback that we got with regards to opportunities following graduation. So again, PhDs are not for everyone. I'm just going to throw that out there. They're also very competitive, and you'd want to start looking at putting proposals together, your applications together around this time for opportunities later on down the line, because the chances are you're going to put in a good few of them before you are successful, if you are successful at all for that matter. So so there we are. So Claire's just given us some feedback in the chat that it's much harder to hear Evie than it is you. That's because I have a loud northern booming voice and Evie is very quiet. We're actually wearing lapel mics today, Claire, but I can maybe try and fix that in a second. I'm going to ask Evie a comprehensive question and I'm just going to wander off camera to see if I can fix that. So just 1 second. Let's move it on though. I think we're nearly there. Again, I can't quite remember. Yeah, we're on to the chat. Now, I'm going to try and open the chat function just so that people can see, but again, the performance of the stream has been pretty nightmare. Me and Evie are tiny. Here we go. Let's fix that a little bit. Here we go. Okay, sorry about this, guys. Usually it's slick as you like, but we've had some issues this morning. So I'm going to basically blame it on Ted, because I was thinking he'd be sat here. His face should be right here right now, but it's not. So there we are. So we've got the chat open. Again, Claire's dominating the chat at the moment, guys. This is not for staff. This is for students. So if you have any questions, lead it in. Now, Evie, I'm going to hand it over to you. Just any other points that you want to raise. Now, I'm just going to go and fix your mic so that people can hear you. But anything else you want to raise? 2 seconds. I've really left you hanging there, haven't I?
I know. I'm just trying to think of what would be beneficial, really. I mean, because we've had all the module updates. I don't know, maybe leading up to dissertation, I guess people have already got stuff with their supervisors and everything. Or maybe if people are struggling with the proposals, because I remember I was saying earlier, because I was saying that in research methods we went over a couple, but they were sort of examples that weren't maybe so good. So maybe it would be good to have an example that was like decent, yeah. That we could, obviously, because everyone's projects are different, so you're not going to be able to compare it directly. But
well, I'm happy to do this. I have a few it might be an so we were chatting just before we came onto the stream this morning about how people were kind of feeling about the design study presentation, the design study submission. Sorry. And you, like you said, you picked up on the fact that Liza had given you the opportunity to kind of review a couple of proposals earlier on in the semester, and that's great. But maybe having an example of maybe a more sport-specific one, which was decent. Now I can have a dig around and see if I can put up a couple of examples of proposals, and even some examples of ethics submissions, so you can kind of sort of see what the language is like and things like that. I know it's potentially a bit late in the day, but again, it's better getting these up and you having the opportunity to have a look is what I would say. You've got the whole weekend to work on this, assuming you have time to do that, and then Monday as well to kind of clear up any lack of clarity issues that you've got. So I'll take the opportunity after the stream today to upload those to the course-specific site, and then we'll go from there. Again, I just need the opportunity to just take off names and such like so that people are not identified, but hopefully people will find that useful. We haven't had any more questions coming in the chat yet. So again, guys, if you are sat in the background desperate to ask a question, now is the time, is what I would say. Claire, that includes you as well. What do you need to know about the course, Claire? But yeah, I mean, I think just getting a general idea in the chat as to how people are feeling about their design study submissions would be quite useful, particularly if there's any resources or things that we can make available before we come out. Now, while I asked that, there's something that I showed a few of you in advanced performance nutrition. I'd like to take the opportunity to show that again. So I'm just going to open up some stuff on my screen to show you where you can find some extra help with regards to your ethics submission. So just let me get that opened up now. Again, if there's any questions that you guys have got, please do ask them in the chat straight away. Now, these, again, for your benefit, Evie, these guys are about 20 to 30 seconds behind us. So for whatever we say, they'll hear in 20 to 30 seconds time. So I'm just looking for, if you were in Research Methods for Health Sciences 2 this week, sorry, you will have seen the following form. So let me just show you this now. So I've just gone onto the VRE. Your VRE should look fairly similar to this. You guys can't see any of this, so let me just do that out now. So I'm just on the VRE here, as you can see. Now, yours should look pretty much identical to this. If I just scroll down a touch, you can see, oh, I'm just doing this all wrong. Here we go. You can see this tab here, which is Research Governance and Ethics. Let me just click on that and we'll take a quick look. So you see here, there is lots of guidance, useful resources and guidance documents. Now, most of you, Human Tissue Act, IRAS, not relevant, so ignore. But when we scroll down this long list here, we can see there's guidance for an applicant, a supervisor. Again, you're an applicant, so you might want to have a look at that. Sorry, excuse me, my stomach is not ideal this morning. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to move it up so it's just above my head here. You can see an example of participant information sheet and consent form. Please see note with documents regarding current review 2016. So if you're struggling for an example, there is one available to you on the VRE that you can take a look at. It gives you a good example of the different types of questions you need to pose in your participant information sheet. It gives you an example of the consent form. There may be some statements in that consent form which are not relevant, and it's absolutely more than appropriate to get rid of those. But it's, again, check the resource out. It's been there the whole time. Like I said, tried to draw attention to it on Tuesday for those that were present, but obviously, hopefully, all of you will have seen that now. So there's a good place for you to start. And again, I can try and get those examples updated. Yeah. Let's head back over to the chat, see if anyone has asked anything. Okay, Josh coming in fast. Okay, I'm just going to open up my version of the chat because I can actually read it. On the document about progressing from design study presentation to design study submission, it's said to submit ethics by today. Is that correct, or it just needs to be completed prior to Tuesday? Now, obviously we need to include our ethics submission number in the DS, yes. Again, unfortunately, I'm going to deviate from that document a bit with what I'm about to say because, yes, the general advice for everyone on the module was to ensure that your ethics submission was completed by today. Now, the ethics submission is actually going to be driven by the fact that the ethics committee is going to be available on a given date. Now, I've been working closely with the ethics committee secretary to try and ensure that those dates are made available to us as soon as possible. I have a date available. I'm not going to share it just now because I just want to double check what the actual, yes, the ethics committee is meeting on this particular date, but I want to just make sure that I know exactly when the submission date is, because those two things are different. Because obviously you need to be able to submit your ethics form and the committee needs to review it. Now, this is only relevant, and Josh, I'm going to explicitly point you out here, this is only relevant for people who are undertaking a Part B ethics form, because your Part A ethics form, if you don't need to complete Part B, it doesn't need to go to the ethics committee. And as such, it's then only down to your supervisor to approve your ethics form. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone. If you're only doing a Part A, it only goes to your supervisor and they tick it off, because essentially if you're only meeting Part A, it means that your project is low risk in the eyes of the university. So the likelihood of your participant being harmed, being mentally scarred or upset as a result of doing your project is very, very low / non-existent. Whereas if you tick boxes which highlights that you need to do a Part B ethics, the likelihood is it will go to the ethics committee, and therefore those dates, you're going to need to be a little bit more sensitive about those dates. Josh, I'm going to point you out, just because you're my research student, you're going to do a Part A ethics. Your ethics for application is going to come to me directly. As such, it will be up to me to say yes or no to your project. Claire's come in. I've told my students I'd rather the ethics form was submitted later than today and was more complete. And it was more complete than in today. Yes. Do it once, do it well, I think is what Claire is referring to there. Essentially, when you submit your ethics form via the VRE portal, it goes to your supervisor before it goes to the ethics committee anyway. So if you're in the situation of having to submit a Part B ethics form, your supervisor may well bounce it straight away if you're missing things like your participant information sheet, a consent form, which needs to be included. So you'd then get your supervisor return it to you directly and say, you need to include these forms. Now, as it shows in the design study guidance document, we have this 3-week turnaround to ensure that your ethics submission is actually appropriate. Now, again, I would agree with Claire on this front. I don't want to see my students. I don't think it's that hugely relevant for, because you're either doing a Part A, well, most of you are doing Part A, or the ethics is already in place, and therefore it'll just be the forms, Antonia and Jamila specifically. But nevertheless, I can't remember what I was going to say now, it's gone. Yes, as Claire has indicated there, supervisors are going to get irritated if you're going to submit subpar ethics submissions. So if they're not ready, I think I would be more inclined to say work more comprehensively on it on the weekend and align your submission with your design study submission. I'd say if you're going beyond the design study submission, you need to have a chat with your supervisor as to whether that's appropriate or not, because it's probably going to compromise your project in some way. So if it's not realistic for you to get it in, then adjust it and move it towards the Tuesday 1 o'clock kind of deadline. Then when your supervisor receives your ethics submission, they're going to receive something that's of a higher quality and more likely to be sent to the ethics committee. So hopefully that makes sense. And thank you, Claire, for making that point to me as well. Again, if anyone has any specific ethics questions, I know Josh had asked a specific question there. I'm happy to try and address that. I know I was talking to Dana, again, I'm doing a bit of a filler here in case anyone else has any other questions to ask, but I was talking to Dana a little bit about some concerns she had about her ethics submission. And I think there may be some outstanding practical issues with regards to your project. Yeah. So, for example, me and Evie were talking about some stuff with regards to your project. Now, your design study submission is just you saying, this is what I intend to do. It may well be the case that your project is scaled back a little bit as a result of your design study submission, and that's fine. The chances are your project may get modified as a result of you doing your design study submission, but I think you just need to submit what it is that you intend to do for your design study submission, and your ethics submission also needs to be what you intend to do. And it may well be the case that your study needs to be modified from that. Now, from your ethics submission perspective, it shouldn't really be modified too much. So you might want to write your ethics approval with a degree of flexibility in mind. For example, you may have written your ethics committee submission with the bod pod in mind. Again, those of that you've contacted me about the bod pod, I've already spoken to your supervisor who should have spoken to you as well. So if you haven't spoken to your supervisor about the bod pod, you need to. So you might want to then change your ethics application to indicate that body composition assessment will be determined via bod pod or SECA or skin folds, because then you've at least outlined that this is the project, these are the different techniques that are available to you, but at this stage you're not certain as to which one it's going to be. But the ethics submission covers you for all of them, so it wouldn't necessarily matter in that regard. And ethics submissions like that can be quite challenging, because there is a way of ensuring that you word something that includes flexibility. So it's about riding this line between being flexible enough in your design to warrant that, but also being specific enough so that you're not misleading participants at the ethics committee as to the intensity of your project. So hopefully that makes sense. Claire's come in here. Thanks, Claire. Yep, exactly what I mean. Sorry, language is confusing because blood being a pain again. Thank you, Claire. All forgiven, all good, is what I would say. Now, we haven't had any more questions come in, and it is 12:10 because we've been having a fairly full on. Is there anything else you want to add before we close off, Evie, or we get any more questions?
I don't think so, no.
What would you say the general feeling is at the moment, except from stress?
That's what I was going to say. No, I think generally people are happy.
Okay.
Just a lot of work to do, I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Because we've obviously got our dissertation to think about, plus all the modules as well.
Yeah.
But I think the general consensus is that things are going okay.
Yeah.
I think.
Just on that, again, yeah, you've got your dissertation is coming up, but that's what the design study is. So again, if you're going to apply or stress anything, think about your design study submission. And once that's in, you can then kind of move on and start thinking about how to make that project real. So like I say, the design study submission is what you intend to do, whereas the pragmatic conversation with your supervisor may turn into a case of, okay, well, that was a nice idea, but the practical limitations are these, and therefore it could be a slight tweaking. And as I mentioned, Dana's project at the moment is pinned on the availability of a specific piece of equipment. And I've suggested to her that she makes the submission, her design study submission, with the assumption that that equipment would be available. Because it could well be the case that that equipment isn't available. So from an ethics perspective, she might just need to put in a substantial amendment to change the proposal. And that's the thing, you can do that. Don't recommend it though. I recommend getting your ethics right first time, so you don't have to make substantial amendments. But then, pragmatically speaking, if that particular piece of equipment isn't available, then the model's going to have to change. And that's going to have to happen irrespective of whether you put your design study submission in or not. So again, don't focus too much on that logistical barrier, and think about, well, this is what I intend to do. And it may well change from that point onwards, but we can deal with that as we approach it. So
I was going to ask something.
Yeah.
Actually, but would you recommend putting a schematic in the proposal?
As in a figure, like a timeline schematic?
I don't mean the Gantt chart, I mean of the actual methodology.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes, is the short answer.
Okay.
Sorry, excuse me, everyone. Yes, I always recommend to everyone that in your methods section, you can more effectively communicate your research design through a figure than you can with words. So, and usually the best combination of that. So, again, I had the opportunity to look at half the students' design study presentations, and again, the recommendation was, when I was saying when you were putting your design study presentation together, is to use a very visual representation of your design study, as in participant. I've got 5 visits over 5 weeks, and you have a slide which shows that. That can then become figure 1. Figure 1. Order of visits and number of weeks for participants to attend. Perfect. Then what do they actually do when they get to the lab? Now, some of you might have a familiarization session, which may not warrant a timeline type figure, because you're just doing things like height, weight, anthropometry, as in body composition, and maybe some strength tests. I don't know, arbitrary kind of example. But then your main experimental visits, so what you're actually going to compare, if you're doing like a repeated measures design, or if you're doing like a longitudinal study where they're going to do some measurements before and after a particular intervention, it can actually then be really useful to say participants arrive at the lab, they're going to be here for 2 hours, and in that 2 hours we're going to do body weight, lactate threshold, then we're going to do some lung function tests, we're going to give them a supplement, whatever the design is. It's so much easier to see that than it is to read it and visualize it. And similarly, if you have a figure and then you can describe it afterwards, that can also be super helpful as well. So I'd always recommend that people do that. Yeah. Like
full text and then describing it, and then schematic as well.
Or a text that refers to the figure explicitly. So again, don't put figures in and don't refer to them in the text, because that doesn't really work. But you may find that you can actually reduce some of the text that you're discussing because it's shown in the figure. Okay, do you see what I mean? So there's a happy balance there of describing what you can see, but not like being like just describing literally what you can see. So Antonia, regarding the advanced performance exam, is there any way it could be earlier in the day? I don't work very well in the evening, and I'm worried this will reflect my performance in the exam.
I was going to say that as well.
Okay, so 2 students have come back and said, yeah, I don't know is the short answer. I haven't acted on this because I didn't get a huge response back from you guys when I mentioned it on the stream, when I'd said Hannah had mentioned that the provisional timetable is out. It needs to be a consensus, I'm afraid. So I can put out a Google form and hopefully get the full capture of everyone doing the module, but ultimately that's what we're told it's going to be. And if the majority of individuals come back and say, please could you see if it could be changed, then I can act on that. But unfortunately, I can't change that at this stage. Claire, thankfully, as disability tutor for the university, has come in. And Tony, if this links to your disability, it can be earlier, but you would not be allowed out of your exam room until after your colleagues went into theirs, as their exam is probably, you would then leave the exam room and tell everyone what's on the exam, which is not allowed. So Claire, as disability tutor for the college, has come in again. Excellent, thank you, Claire. Yeah, I think it's very useful Claire is sat in the background, because we can then maybe push that ahead. So there may be some specific cases where we can make some adjustments. Again, we'll discuss that with individuals as we see fit type thing. And then we can go from there. Excellent. Yeah, we'll take that forward, and then we can deal with individual basis. And again, I'll put something up on the Advanced Performance Nutrition site to see what the general consensus is there. You might have noticed on the stream, I tried to sell the idea of an exam between 6 and 8 o'clock, because I get it. I can see why that might not be great for some people. So we'll take it on from there, really. So I keep trying to cut it off, but if there's any further questions, now is your time. But I will start to wrap it up, because I need to go and do some work in the wet labs. No worries, Antonia. Thanks for posing the question. That's fine. But I think we'll wrap it up there, guys. It's been the longest episode of SEN Stream yet, I think is how I would describe that. Hopefully I will see most of you on the Monday session, just for that last minute tweaks session that we're going to do with Teddy. Hopefully, again, I rely on you guys to kind of set the tone in terms of chat etiquette. use of emojis, etc. From that point onwards. But yeah, hope to see you there. Hope you find it useful. Good luck with putting your design study submissions together over the weekend. Once it's done, you will be in a better position to start getting your projects up and running, which is what we're all kind of here to do. So best of luck with it. Have a nice weekend, if that's entirely possible considering your workload, and I will look forward to seeing you all in the session next week with Teddy and then with Sam on Advanced Performance Nutrition. Okay, from me and Evie, thanks very much for watching.
Thanks.
Cheers guys, see you later, take it easy.